Hi, it's Glenn McQueenie, and welcome to my 25-minute Success Series podcast. This is where we spend time with some great agents just trying to figure out what their ideal perfect fit client or perfect niche market is so that they can build a really massive business dealing with only people they really like and trust, and also dealing with very high margin clients. So today, pretty excited, I have Martin Desjardins from Montreal on the line. How you doing, Martin?
I'm great, Glenn. How are you?
I'm good. So Martin works at Keller Williams Urbain Realty in Montreal, and he specializes in, correct me on my geography here, but it would probably be just northeast of downtown Montreal in Little Italy and Mile End. Is that right?
Yeah, that's it, Glenn. We're just a bit north of the downtown core there. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So for those people who are listening, just tell them a little bit about yourself, so they kind of like, how long you've been in the business, where do you kind of specialize right now, just a little bit about your career so far.
Sure. I've been in the business for 10 years, so kind of reaching that double-digit cap.
Mm-hmm.
I've been, working, kind of, I wouldn't say throwing myself all over the place, but doing the business that's come naturally. So sometimes it's condos at 300,000, 400,000. Sometimes it's $1 million houses, even triplexes, duplexes. It's great because it's allowed me over the last 10 years to get a lot of experience in real estate, in a bit of investment, but mostly residential homes. So just kind of seeing all those things. But I see after 10 years that it'd be nice to focus a little bit more on a certain demographic or a certain range, because it's just more efficient. I could even bring more value to those clients too.
Right. So who's your kind of, if you look back like over the last year or two or even 12 or 18 months, who've been your best clients? Like, can you paint me a picture of like, how old are they? What do they do for a living? What do you like about them? So I can just get a sense of, who your perfect fit client is.
Yeah, it's a good question. Working with young families, I'd say in the last, we've always done that, but in the last 12 to 24 months, those are the clients that for me have also really clicked. That's kind of sparked this interest of, hey, I should work with more clients like this because we see eye to eye. They're really connected to what I'm doing. I have a young family also. I have a son and a daughter. I can really relate to moving with kids. And I was at a conference yesterday and I made the comment, people don't move for no reason, right? They don't move just to move. Like, no one likes moving. So having kids in schools, daycares, those are things that are interesting. And there's a value of making it a home, not just a temporary place where you sleep. So those are the clients that have really connected. For example, we've sold their condos, even that either the one partner bought and the other one moved into, or sold both of their condos, and then they go and buy a house, right? And that's kind of the next step in their journey as a family. Either kids are coming or they have kids. So those have been the clients that we've seen have really been in contact and referring business back to us because we've given a good service and we've connected. To me, that's the word in my business, is connecting. I like connecting to my clients and to people, and it's really clicked with those types of clients. So that's what I'd say are the perfect clients for us.
Yeah, it's really amazing, how sometimes agents will talk about doing deals all the time, right? Where I really think if they just counted connected relationships, they would do much better in their real estate career. Because if you treat every client like a commodity, don't be surprised if they treat you like a commodity when it comes to selling their house again. But I love how you've created, and I love your theme there of connection, right? And connection means a lot of things, right? But it probably means like a deep understanding of what's really important to them and that you're really advocating for their needs. So let's talk about the money on the table then in a typical transaction, right? So you said that they're in a condo right now, and that would be between 300,000 and 400,000.
Yeah, maybe up to 500,000. Let's say, so they're in that range. And then
Okay, and sometimes they have two of them, right? Like, but we'll just pretend they have one right now, and will they have young kids in that condo right now?
Probably.
Or,
yeah.
Okay.
That's what I see young. Like they're under 3 and 4 years old. let's say.
Right.
So they're seeing their kids are starting to take a bit more space, right? They're more
Yeah.
mobile.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're no longer blobs,
Yeah,
just sitting
exactly.
around.
Yeah.
And now and what's really important I found for people with kids under 5 is the most important thing on their mind is which school will they get into so that they can create that kind of social connection atmosphere that will really guarantee their kids a good life.
Absolutely.
Right. So, and then when we sell their condo, where do they typically, what neighborhood do they move to, and what price range is it?
Yeah, and that's a good question. You know, on our, I have a couple of people on my team, but we focus
Mhm.
where we all do all the deals. There's no one on my team that's doing other deals. Like I'm involved in all of our transactions,
Right.
and we don't go off island. For example, you know, so if a client is selling and moving to another area, well, then we will refer it out. You know, there's a
Okay.
specialty that I think we need to deliver in terms of value for pricing, service, connections to the brokers and the area. So the ones that we're looking at keeping, if you will, are staying in the downtown core, and that can range from NDG, Westmount, Town of Mount Royal, Outremont. And it's kind of like a bit of a crown, if you will, around Mount Royal. It's just if
Okay.
Mount Royal was the circle of the donut, the hole in the donut, it's
Yeah.
kind of what rings around Mount Royal.
Oh,
And those are
okay.
the areas of nice properties but family oriented neighborhoods as well.
Okay. So, what price range would it, and what's the style of house, and what's the price range that your typical person would be moving to?
Yeah, you'll have either a semi-detached, and I think they're more in the, let's say, 800 to 1.2 million.
Okay.
We're not necessarily, I'd say, like luxury specialists. We do, probably 10 to 15 deals a year in the $1 million price range. But that's not our niche, if you will, if I use that word. We're doing a lot of buyers there. So that's where we're seeing there's a need because they're going from a condo to these houses that are semi-detached. Very different when you're getting to the construction materials because in Montreal we have houses in a lot of these neighborhoods were really built from 1910 to 1940, the
Mhm.
ones that we're looking at. So that's a specific type of construction and things that come with the beauty of charm, as I always say, is it comes with maintenance rather than a new house, right? You got to take care of that wood and the floors and outside everything. So
Mhm. And the
it's
truth
letting
is,
them, yeah.
I was just going to say the truth is those homes that were built in 1910 to 1940 are probably 10 times better than the new houses that are being built today. Like they'll just be around for, hundreds of years because they were built so well back then.
Absolutely. And that's what I love. That's one part of working in Montreal real estate that I love is you're really, this is a bit of a cliche, but you're really getting to see a piece of history every day. I visit
Mhm.
thousands of properties a year. It's amazing every week I see something new that I'd never seen and wow, that's amazing. And that was built, in 1938 and they use this type of foundation and it's amazing. It's sharing that because when you become a homeowner rather than just a condo, you have to understand the house, how it works and what you're getting
Mhm.
yourself into. And to me that's an important part of the process for these clients, and I have a house like that, so, and I've had
Right.
a couple of them, so I know what it's all about.
That's amazing. Well, and it sounds like him just listening to you, Martin, is like you're excited and passionate about it. Like you really love those houses, right? Like you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so if we take the average that they're going to sell their condo at say 400,000, because you said three
Mhm.
to five, and they buy
Yeah.
between 800 and 1.2, so we'll just take a million. Then what's the kind of commission on the table every time we just find someone who's got to sell their condo and move to that $1 million home? So what would be
Yeah, about
typical?
35,000, I'd say, if I'm rounding and just kind of calculating off the top of my head.
Right. And the beautiful thing is, as we build this whole niche for you, you can start thinking about this as I don't have to do tons of deals anymore. I just have to do lots of this one type of deal because, your compensation is pretty good for helping those people that you love to work with anyway buy the type of homes
Mhm.
that you just love to sell. And it's really the beauty of having your own niche market is once I'm not saying blow up your business right now. Like you've got a very, very successful business right now, but over the
Hmm.
next 90 days, it's what if we could just focus 10% of your time on just like getting into this niche market?
I'd be
Because
excited about that.
yeah, because
Yeah.
what you really discover is that the riches are in the niches, right? Like it's really, if you just go deep and then you get this really deep understanding of exactly what that human being is going through. And then our marketing strategy is really to talk exactly to their selfish need. Um, and the way we plan that out is basically we plan it not from what we think they want, but we plan it with this question. And the question is, what do you think is keeping them awake at night right now? So imagine the people who haven't contacted you yet, who are sitting in the
Hmm.
condo and they've got two kids under 5 and they're lying in bed at night and the kids have finally gone to sleep and they're both lying, and what's the conversation that's going on in that bedroom?
It's a good question. In today's market in Montreal, I'll answer very local and right now and kind of big picture. Right now, this price range, the 800 to 1.2, 1.3, there's not a lot of inventory because I've had people calling me even this week, that are not working with brokers and they seem to be kind of behind the eight ball all the time because the places went quickly and of course the brokers all came in quickly and made offers because they know how the game works.
Mhm.
And they feel like we're looking and we're looking all the time, but we're always just a bit behind.
Okay.
And that's one thing that's happening locally, but that could change in 6 to 12 months too. The
Mhm.
big picture is they're wondering how much does it really cost to have a house like that, to have $1 million house, the taxes, the heating. They're taking a step up, if you will, or they're taking this kind of a step. It doesn't have to be up or down, but they're taking a step where they're thinking, you know, can we take care of this? They see the big picture for the kids, that it's, the right move. And I think there's what I hear in their language is a lot of the time it's the financial of, if we have to renovate it, how much does it really cost? Because if they had a condo, they might have had a bit of work to do. It's not the same as, redoing a foundation or a
Mhm.
basement or a roof. So these things become big monsters, right? In their nightmares, as you said, when they're in bed at night, they think like,
Mhm.
oh boy, what's hiding in the closet, right? What are the skeletons in the closet in these old houses?
Right.
Because they've probably heard, as anything, they've heard the horror stories, but they haven't heard the other 98% that are really happy and everything's going well in their old house too.
Okay. That's awesome. And what else are they thinking about? What else is keeping them awake at night?
Yeah, and I think while they're doing this transition, because they're in their condo, is how do we do this? The age old question, that I get every time I go to a hockey game or a soccer game with my kids, and when I have buyers sitting in front of me and sellers, the egg or the chicken? Do we sell first, buy first? And it's kind of managing the whole process, because for different people, there are different answers to that question. I believe depends on, what you have in the bank and what,
Yeah.
what your risk level is. But so different people, it's a different answer, but they want to understand the process, right? They want to, like, what is it from start to finish to sell and buy? What's it going to look like? Because these are the questions that these clients that are coming up visually to me as I'm talking to you, they wanted to know, what is it going to really take if there's multiple offers? What is that process like? And they wanted that information beforehand.
Mhm.
So, and we on my team, we're very information based, where we see ourselves more as consultants, where I want to
Mhm.
give them the information and coach them and train them during the process, so that when it's go time and that big decision needs to be made, they're not stressed out, that they're not in control of the process, because we've built that foundation for them of, this is what's going to happen, and so we get
Mhm.
the stressful part out before we go through those little, so we check a lot of boxes, go through an offer, and those are the things that I've seen they really react to, because they feel like when it's go time, we really felt reassured that we were making the right decision because we didn't have too many question marks hanging up there.
Right.
But before they meet with us, that's to answer your question very simply, is they have a lot of question marks about this process of what's it going to look like, what's it going to feel like, how's it going to work.
Right. Okay. And what about schools? What's their thing with schools?
Yeah, it's that's a good question. The In Montreal, we have if people are going into some of these areas that I mentioned, there's a big private school situation, I would
Hmm.
say. So people are willing to move around, like live in one area, even though they know their kids are going to go to school like 20 minutes away, but they can get there by subway, by bus. However, that's private school is not for everyone.
Right.
So the ones that are looking in these areas specifically so they can have access to these great schools, that is, as you mentioned earlier on, it is one of their primary targets is to get into these school districts for elementary schools for sure, and eventually access to high schools, even if they're just accessible by subway, right? Because the kids are older and they're teenagers, so they can take a 20-minute subway ride to get to school in the morning.
Right. Because this house is really going to be probably their at least 10 to 20-year home, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're going to be like, this is where they're really going to be sitting until their kids are finished school.
Yeah, and it's a good point, Glenn. I've seen, usually we earlier on, I'd say in my first 5 years, we did a lot of condos, and it's a really 3 to 4 year turnaround time was the average. I was
Hmm.
doing averages in different areas, and it was really the turnstile was turning pretty quickly. But now, the people that are contacting us and in these types of buyers and clients and sellers that we're talking about here, they are looking at a long term. They said life is busy enough, so we don't want to move every 4 or 5 years. For us, for the kids, it's let's just find that right place, and we're willing to either wait or pay a bit more now, but to know that we can really grow into that house. So as you said, for schools, future schools, those are all really important things that are on the radar for sure.
Right. Okay, so here's what I think would be a kind of an interesting marketing strategy to try to get
Okay.
these people, right? Because, and I think it ties in with your mindset and your team's mindset of just really like a very high level of service, but also an educational based service. You know what I mean? It's like we're going to answer
Mhm.
all your questions up front, or so as you said, when it's go time, they're ready to go and they feel really confident with the decision, right?
Yeah.
So if we're going to market them, we have to kind of get these what we call invisible prospects to somehow reach out to us because something that we're delivering to them they're perceiving as having value, right? So
Mhm.
I'm just thinking about a couple of these things. So what about I think we could start with something as simple as like a Facebook business page called Your Guide to Buying Your Dream Home in Downtown Montreal, and just position it in the marketplace that you are the expert just in that area.
Mhm.
And in that, so we're using that framework to almost be the place where people would start going as a resource center. And they're just going to be kind of creeping you and watching it as you keep on adding value to it, right? Because
Yeah.
I think this would be even better is what if we did a hassle-free orientation tour, a group tour of the top 10 best homes for sale between 800 and $1 million on a Saturday afternoon, but we're grouping people now where they can
I love
come,
it.
and also you can bring a home inspector with you. And what you do is you're like basically 30 minutes in each house. And it's really this educational tour where you're going in and showing the house, talking a bit about the history. And then the home inspector kind of goes down the basement with them and says, hey, this is what wet basement looks like. This is what urea formaldehyde. This is what knob and tube wiring is. This furnace is 18 years old. It'll have to be replaced in 7 years. This is lead piping. What if we could almost start creating like this caravan tour, no hassle, no obligation, where people can just come out just looking, you know?
Mhm.
Could you see yourself doing something like that, or do you think something like that would work?
Absolutely. I'd love to join that tour.
Yeah.
Not only
See,
lead it, yeah, I would go on it for sure.
Right. And I think you could even fine tune it because inside there, there's another niche. And then the other niche is, it's the Montreal tour of historic homes,
Mhm.
where now you can even have sub niches off of it because the historic homes are going to be more expensive, probably, right?
Yeah.
And they're going to be in the better neighborhoods. And so now you can get two markets working. You can almost have the one tour. And so what you're doing is you're basically providing this service, no cost, no hassle, no obligation for people to put up their hand and say, hey, I wouldn't mind coming on that tour. And at
Yeah.
the end of the tour, everyone gets together and they have a beer or a glass of wine, and we chat about it. And on the first tour, maybe it's only one couple comes, and that's okay
Yeah.
because it's the buyer you just got, right? And maybe
Mhm.
the next tour you've got three or four couples. But there's a real beauty in doing some batch touring. It's like a daily tour of downtown Montreal homes that you
Yeah.
schedule for Saturdays and Sundays. And maybe it's from 10 a.m. till 12 noon, so you can still do open houses, or, it depends on if you want to be with your kids at that time. You have to work it into your schedule
Mhm.
on what it would look like. And what you can do is, especially if they have young children, they're not going to want to bring those young children on the tour.
No.
So you're going to meet at either a daycare center or like a Chuck E. Cheese restaurant where you'll take care of those kids for those 2 hours. And then the parents are like, oh, great, that's awesome. you know,
Mhm.
I can go on this tour and come back and grab my kids because, I know what it was like when I was moving my kids around. Like, your young kids are good for one home typically.
Oh yeah.
And then at the second home,
And
they're
as
like,
you answered the question of they would think I really want to go on this tour, but we have the kids on the weekends, right? It's like boom,
right.
we already have that solution.
We got that unique solution ready because we thought about it ahead. Like
Yeah.
we're just thinking 4 steps ahead. So now we get this like boutique daycare that we know we're gonna have the right people working there, right? And then we're gonna have
Mhm.
this quick tour, and then they can come back and get their kids and go home, and that's great. And if they don't have kids yet, but they want to go out and meet for a drink afterwards and just shoot the shit, ask any questions they possibly want of you, then you're just sitting there providing the service. And then the beautiful thing is every time you go to their soccer games or hockey games with your kids, and people go, "Hey, Martin, how's real estate?" You go, "Hey, you know what? We just created this tour," and so now
Yeah.
they'll go, "Oh, I'd love to go on that tour," or they start telling your friends about the tour. Do you think that would work?
Absolutely.
Right. And
Yeah.
then I would also set the tour up that the first home or two were the worst. So you could honestly walk right in there, and the home inspector and yourself would just like rip that house apart. you
Mhm.
know because when I was working with my clients, I always did a tour first. It was always a no hassle orientation tour, and I just picked apart the first couple of homes because I wanted them to, and I really explained, how furnaces work and all that stuff, and then that was my lead conversion, because when they come and I'm pointing out the deficiencies in the home instead of saying, "Oh, that's a nice kitchen,"
Yeah.
people, it builds trust and relationship.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Would that make sense?
Mhm.
And then I think the other thing we could do is you could almost publish a little guide, like called multiple offer hacks, that you could offer where people who are, and it's like, hey, here's my 8 secrets to multiple offers and how to win your place every time, and then make that as a lead generation system where in order to get it, they
Mhm.
just have to give you their email address.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And then the last thing I would probably add to it, well, I think there's two other really cool things. One would be the no hassle free 30-minute video consultation. So, they don't have to come to your office, lug their kids. You don't have to go over there and they have to worry about their kids running around. You could offer this during the workday. And you
Mhm.
could use like a platform like Zoom.us, which is a free platform. And, it's really cool because it'll put your face, their face, the next face, and a whiteboard together. And what if you just offered the free 30-minute consultation with the expert, and people sign up, and then you just start answering and educating all their questions right now.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I love it. I mean, as I was mentioning, and I have a coaching background and teaching
Hmm.
background, and I think that's that people react well to that. Is we're not there to, as I tell them, twist arms and get them to buy the first house they see. I want them to have the information so that once they're in there, 1 year, 2 year, 5 years, they know they made the decision with as much information as they could have had at that time.
Right.
And that's all. They can't have 20 years of experience and have seen 30,000 houses either. But we try to kind of update them, bring them up to speed on the market very quickly. So to have a 30-minute consultation, I think would be beneficial for them. And I'm a pretty open person. I'm going to share a lot, and I think it would work too for them to see me and see us live, right? Like you said, rather than think, oh, do I have to go down there and meet them at 6 p.m. on Thursday night? The weeks fly by, and when you have kids, it's not always ideal. So this would be a perfect solution.
Yeah, and it's like the easy button of the business, right? Because the alternative is you have to go to their place after the kids go down, and they don't have any energy, just like you don't have any energy once you put your kids down. You're like, okay, I'm done. I just want to chill out and read a book or watch TV or whatever, and then go to bed. And so you eliminate all of those friction points in a transaction, and it just makes it so easy to do business with you because you've already thought what their needs were. You've already planned it. So it's the perfect solution for them. And they can't argue it, right? They're like, boy, this guy's thought of everything. You're like, yeah. And I think you might be one of the few people that can pull this off because of your teaching, almost nurturing education background, because you love it. Like that's your sweet spot of your market, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Most agents would be like, oh, whatever. And then this would be my final thing, and then we'll probably wrap up because I think we're over our 25 minutes. But what about if you did a free guide to the best elementary public schools in downtown Montreal? I'm sure there's got to be some ranking service where you can get it. I don't know what your rules are on if you're allowed to say this is a good one or this is a bad one. I know in Toronto we have a guide, or the Fraser Institute I think comes out across Canada and ranks all the schools. And what if you could almost, as part of the service you offer, is here's my guide to the best elementary schools. If you're not going to be sending your kid to private school. And then you talk about the pros and cons and living in that neighborhood, and all of a sudden, people start going, "Wow, that's really good." Now, everything I'm thinking about, this guy has already thought about. Like it's like, is he lying in bed with me at night, joining my conversation?
Yeah, exactly. And I think it goes back to what we started with. It's going to connect with them.
Right. And that's what it's all about. Like, the connection that you really want is the relationship. And the relationship, you only get great relationships by having great, in-depth, awesome conversations with people. And I think you're kind of well on your way to nailing this. And then you just build a business plan. You're like, oh, well, what if we just found 30 people next year to do this? What if just all we had to do as a team is find 30 people in the next 12 months? Then you've got $1 million business doing 30 transactions, and you can spend more time at home with your kids too.
Absolutely.
All right. Any questions? Are you good?
When can I start?
Yeah, I'd say start tomorrow. Well, I think what you have to do is just do a 90-day sprint. Like, what can you do in the next 90 days that would just get this going 10% of the time? And I would probably get your, obviously like a webcam so you can be doing Zoom video. You can do research and set up the first tour or test market the first tour. I think you can publish the best elementary school paper. You can do a guide to multiple offers. And you can also have posts. Maybe it's a conversation you have with the home inspector, or what are the 10 things people should look for in buying older homes in the downtown core, and just send that video out to people. Now you're starting to just build it up, and then the next 90 days that's because now that'll bring us right into the end of February. So now you're into the market. So now you're going to be grabbing all your leads in the next 90 days and then ready to run in the market in February, March, April, May, June.
Yeah, perfect.
Fun, eh?
Yeah, I love it.
All right. Well, Martin, thank you so much for joining me today on the podcast, and I'm really excited to see how this all works out for you.
Thank you, Glenn. I really appreciate it.
All right. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.